Welcome to the online course for A Rich Man's Guide to Ruling America. My name is Arnold and I'll be your instructor. Today's presentation kicks off the introductory chapter and will basically just provide a high-level overview of the entire course. One quick warning: if you are not rich, you need to close this video and go watch something else like WorldStar, or whatever it is you people watch. Just pretend you never even heard about this video because this is not for your type of people. Alright, with that out of the way, let's take a look at today's agenda. We are going to talk about who we are, what we want to accomplish, and what strategies are going to get us there. If you are brand new to being rich, and you just began building your empire, then this course will definitely help you get started on your quest for domination. Now, I know a lot of you are older folks who might already know some of this stuff, but it's still useful to get a good refresher on what works and what doesn't. After all, the world is constantly changing. And it might be time to reevaluate some of your strategies. So who are we? We are the top 1%. That means millionaires and billionaires. Many of us are CEOs or executive-level board members. We might participate in the control of multiple firms such as private equities. We own land, we own property, we own natural resources, and in some cases even people. Now, if you are here, it is because you too are also extremely wealthy. And this online course is designed specifically for you, and all of us. Okay. Now that we know who we are, let's talk about what we want. So, it probably comes as no surprise that the number one thing that we want is more money. But it's more than just about wanting more money. Because money comes and goes. What we want is money that easily moves around and passes freely through the economy, with the expectation that said money eventually ends up in our pockets. So yeah, maximizing profit margins is a given, but also tax cuts are important. Then to top it off, we have deregulated our respective industries. That way the government has less control over what we are allowed to do to the planet and to the workers. That's where number 2 comes into play: more power. This power can come in many forms. If you are a business owner, then you might want more power over your workers. If you are a landlord, then you want more power over your tenants. If you are a financier, then you want more power over your borrowers. If you are a corporation who sells food products, then you want more power over farms, animals, and your customers. Now ultimately, a lot of this comes down to litigation. Which is what brings us to our third goal: more influence. This means we have to be able to shape the laws that govern our business interests. We can help place certain elected officials in the right spots, not all of them, just a few in key areas where they do what is in our best interests, not the American citizens' best interests. We have to try and appoint our own judges, at every district level, even the Supreme Court. And we also want to get more control over the information that gets fed to the people. That way we can affect how and what people think about these changes, or if they even think at all. That would be the best case scenario, where people don't even realize they're being screwed. Alright, so how do we get what we want? It might seem like a lot of work, but the good news is that the system in America is largely built for rich people like us. All of the institutions, the levers, the laws. The entire apparatus is already there, we just have to learn how to use it in order to unlock the massive potential that it offers. Even the police are basically just there to maintain the financial pecking order. That's why we armed them with military-style weapons and equipment. It's there to protect the capitalist hierarchy, so to speak. Now, the strategies that we have outlined to accomplish our goals all fall nicely into 5 different categories, and each one will have its own chapter that will be released in future videos. But for now, we are just going to briefly touch on each one of them. Okay, here we go. The number 1 strategy for ruling America starts with keeping them busy. Now, who do I mean by them? Who are they? They are the regular Americans. average everyday working class citizens. They need to be kept as busy as possible, preferably by working for us. But if not that, then at least by being kept distracted. And these three are the heavy hitters of this particular strategy because they all suck up so much of people's time and energy. When used effectively, people are going to be too busy to rise up and revolt. Too busy to further their education, or to start their own businesses. It also means they're going to look for quick fixes for everything, which will create opportunities for us to capitalize on. Because we can sell them the solutions to their crowded schedules. Fast food instead of home cooking. Diet pill instead of exercise. Then with whatever little free time they do have, they will be too tired to really do anything constructive, and that's where the entertainment factor comes in. Give them more Kim Kardashian, give them more football. And all they're going to want to do is watch movies and TV and scroll on their cell phones. But we also want them to argue amongst themselves, that way they are more focused on each other, instead of on us. The less attention we get, the better. When they are fighting amongst themselves, they will also be less likely to get organized and form things like a workers' union or a strike or a petition. They have the numbers on their side, and we don't want them to realize that. The number 2 strategy for ruling America is keeping them broke. When people are broke, they are unable to do so many things. For example, they won't be able to fund their own political candidates. They won't be able to afford good lawyers. Let's say one of you guys sold them a boneless buffalo chicken sandwich. And one of your customers chokes on a bone after eating it. Well, if they can't afford a good lawyer, they might probably lose the case against you. Other examples, they won't be able to start their own businesses or create a prototype for their new invention idea. There are so many examples of how them being broke keeps us in power. All of this is to ensure that we stay in power. And it ensures that we can continue to control the population. So, with that in mind, it's these 3 tools that we have at our disposal that can really lock the American people into a constant cycle of working to pay bills and working to pay off debt. They call it the rat race, and it really is a rat race because it is so hard for them to escape and they're all basically just rats running around pointlessly. That's the way it is, and going forward that's the way we want to keep it. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, debt and wages makes sense, but how does education fit into this strategy? Well, there's 2 parts to that. Education can be crippled, so that kids grow up dumb and stupid, and they can't think critically about any of these issues. And we can also make college education so expensive that the only way to afford it is to take out a huge student loan that effectively becomes a ball and chain for anybody who graduates. But none of this happens in a vacuum. We have to use the system that is available to us. So, what am I talking about? I am talking about the government. Think about it like this. The laws that get written and the subsequent court decisions are like the gears and machinery of the system. Then the money we pump into that system is the oil and grease that keep all the parts running smoothly. What you end up getting is an economic engine that works for us and our businesses. It protects our assets and makes our investments more profitable. At the same time, it can also be used to suppress the voices of others. We can do this by making sure only our well-funded political candidates can get elected. And in return, those same politicians will do what we ask them to. They will support the bills we tell them to support. And they will kill any bills that don't serve our interests. And here is where the police come in. Like I mentioned earlier, the police are not there to protect people, they are there to protect order. We want the appearance of law and order at all times, so that people stay in line and continue going to work. Cutting social programs is pretty self-explanatory. But basically, the idea is to reduce the amount of help ordinary folks can get so that they stay stuck in the cycle of being broke and busy. It also means that we can offer them a privatized version of said social programs. One example is the Department of Education. We are so close to getting rid of the Department of Education so we can fully start opening name brand private schools and academies, which make tons of money. In Chapter 4, we are going to talk about promoting religion. Now, don't worry, you don't have to be a believer or patron of any particular religion. All you have to do is help promote and enforce one particular religion, which is Christianity. Build churches. Put prayer back in the classroom. Put God into every conversation and every commercial. Say God bless our troops. Mix religion with government as much as possible. The reason why we do this is because it offers us three very useful things: authority, subservience, and conformity. Let's start with authority. When the population believes in Christianity, they are unknowingly buying into a system of hierarchy. This hierarchy teaches them that there are those who lead, and there are those who follow. It teaches them that God is in charge and in control, nobody else, wink wink. And God must be respected. After all, a God-fearing man is a non-violent man who is less likely to threaten us. If we can warp their minds completely, they might even serve us the same way they serve God. That brings us to subservience. They have to believe that if they just be good, and go to work, pay all their bills, that eventually they will get some kind of reward in the end. It's all going to pay off one day. That it is all going to be worth it because they are doing their part, because that is the purpose that God gave them. When really everything they do is just for our benefit. Not theirs, not God's, just ours. And finally, conformity. Conformity is good because we don't want any radical free thinkers out there. The more the population conforms to this singular homogeneous way of thinking, the easier it is for us to communicate with them and control them. So, we can give them all the same messaging, and they're all immediately on board with that message, whatever it is. Speaking of messages, in Chapter 5, we will be discussing how to shape the narrative. Now, what does that mean? It means that we have to control the flow of information that gets put out there for people to consume. It goes beyond the news stations. These days, news is basically just information that comes from any and all angles at any time of the day. It can be a podcast, a TikTok video, or a Facebook post. The source doesn't matter anymore because the facts don't matter anymore. That is the information landscape that we live in today. Therefore, apathy should be their default mood. That way they take no action against us, they do no research, and they don't care enough to vote. The goal here is to try and affect their behavior. Their behavior at the checkout counter, their behavior at the voting booth, even their behavior in the bedroom. All we have to do is misinform them, or confuse them enough into doing nothing. Like analysis paralysis, basically. And finally, one of my favorite strategies, link it to freedom. Anytime you want Americans to choose something that is bad for them, just link it to freedom. Find a way to line up your product or service with freedom and then just sit back and let the masses do the work for you. This is so incredibly useful, and its success is quite unique to America because the people here are so brainwashed by that word that they will defend anything even remotely aligned with freedom, even if the product is clearly bad for them. Alright, I know that was a lot of information, so let's refocus our attention on why we are doing all of this. Okay. The point of all this is to achieve the ideal state of the populace. And these descriptions listed here are exactly the kinds of symptoms that we want to see in the American people. As rulers, we want them to be distracted. We want them to be uneducated. We want them to obediently go to work and come back every day on time. And let's not kid ourselves, this kind of transformation doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years of effort, bribery, and indoctrination. The good news is a lot of the groundwork has already been laid out. We just have to continue it. And all our efforts build on top of each other. which means it doesn't matter what kind of business you run or what your contributions are. As long as we all participate in our own way, we can all collectively push the agenda forward. This kind of work has been going on for decades already, and we just have to keep going at it. We have the resources and the professional networks to pull it off. So, I hope you will all join me in this game of getting richer and more powerful. Okay. So that concludes this introductory chapter of our online course. I hope this has helped you learn just how many ways we can manipulate the system so that we protect the status quo. Please share this with all of your rich millionaire and billionaire friends. Don't share it with any poor people because we don't want them to know that we are the reason why they are suffering. It is much better for us when they continue to blame immigrants and transgenders for their problems. We will be back with another video next time where we will dive into Chapter 1, which is all about how to keep Americans busy. It is one of the most important pieces to our entire strategy for ruling the country. So don't forget to like and subscribe, that way you won't miss out on it. Thanks a bunch.